Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. So, if you ever gone to the YouTube back office, or I don't know what it's called, there's a tab called Research, and it shows you the top searches, what people are looking for, and you can see here the one of the top searches is velocity banking with savings accounts, right? And so, if you've seen these velocity banking videos, you know exactly what I'm going to do, and I'm going to show you what we do with savings accounts and velocity banking. And so if you have no idea what velocity banking is, all it is a debt payoff strategy using lines of credit as a main tool, right? Lines of credit, not a savings account, lines of credit, but I'm going to show you what we do with savings accounts when doing velocity banking. And to do velocity banking, there's only two requirements. Number one is a budget. So we have that right here. And then number two is your line of credit as your main operating account. So what's a line of credit? All it is a financial tool where you can borrow money, pay back, and use it over and over again. And there's different types. There's credit cards, there's personal lines of credit, there's home equity line of credit. What we're going to do is we're going to assume we have access to a personal line of credit, right? So I don't know, maybe about $15,000. So let's just assume we have about 10% interest. I'm sorry, a 15% interest rate and a $15,000 limit, and that's going to be our main operating account. Okay, so here we have pretty good income, and I think in many places in the country or most of the states, this is exactly like almost around $100,000, right, of gross. And if you make $100,000, that's about $6,000 a month. And after all your expenses, you have $2,000 a month in savings. That's really good because there's studies that said that hey, most Americans they they can't come up money for a $400 emergency. So I don't know if that's you're in that position, but um, I'm going to show you what we do with savings accounts when we do velocity banking. So there's always two assumptions that we make. First is that we never make more income, even though if you make more income, that's fantastic. But take a look at this. This is the magic of what we do with savings accounts and velocity banking. Zero. That's it. That's it. So whoever's searching on YouTube for the velocity banking with the savings account, or whoever is doing these searches, guess what? All you got to make sure is that, and again, I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm just saying for this demonstration, when we deal with savings accounts, we just kind of got to make sure that they're zero when doing velocity banking, right? We're going to make sure it's zero because the whole purpose of it is to put the entire paycheck into that line of credit. So this $6,000 goes into this line of credit and your expenses come out. And it's going to go down by your cash flow. So let's go ahead and complete this spreadsheet right here. And let's just move around some debt, do a debt transfer, right? So we have two credit cards at $11,000 here. So why don't we move the balances of these credit cards into that personal line of credit, right? 11,000. Okay, awesome. Zero, and we'll call this month zero. Now here's the thing: some people might be complaining, "Oh my goodness, who has a $15,000 line of credit laying around?" Not everybody does, right? But here's the thing: I do. 15 grand right here. 15 grand just laying around that I can use for whatever I wish. Because here's what I know about banks: banks don't lend you money when you need it, right? And so it's very important that when you have a firm financial foundation, including credit, you make sure you get the credit when you don't need it. Like too many people, they get themselves into a financial rut and then they think, oh my goodness, now should be the time where I try to get a line of credit. No, 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 no. We get the line of credit before we ever need it, right? Okay, so let's assume that this 11,000 is now in that line of credit. We did a simple debt transfer, and then guess what? This goes to zero. This goes to zero, right? And now, if we calculate our cash flow, it's been increased a bit, like about $400. Okay, but look, savings account zero. That's what we do with velocity banking, right? Let me just emphasize this: no savings, right? So if anybody's doing a search on velocity banking with savings account, that's the solution when you're doing velocity banking. No savings because your line of credit is essentially going to be your savings account if you ever need it, right? What we're going to do is that we're going to put our entire paycheck into the line of credit, and that does two things. It satisfies the minimum monthly payment. Number two, it minimizes interest because that interest is calculated by the average daily balance, right? And then after every month, it's going to go down by your cash flow, 2,400, and then you just rinse and repeat over and over again. So let's see how long it takes for us to pay off this 2,400. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do this. calculate the next month, which is I2 plus 1, calculate the next month's balance, which is the previous month's balance plus the previous month's interest. And when you're doing the first month, there's usually no interest, right? Or we just assume the interest is already baked into the balance. And then we subtract our cash flow. So our cash flow here is 2404.69. And then now we calculate the interest, which is done by the average daily balance. You take the average here, that'll give you an estimate or a good estimate, multiply it by the interest rate, divided by 12, right? And so now what we do is just rinse and repeat over and over again. And oh my goodness, we paid off 11 grand in 5 months. That was so easy, right? So let's go ahead and write this as our milestones. So again, when we're doing velocity bankings, do we need savings? My savings account is zero, right? The only reason I have a savings account is because when I got this 15 grand line of credit available, they said, hey, you got to have a free savings account. Like it's literally called e-savings. I don't know what it meant, but I was like, sure, why not? I'll get that e-savings account. So that's what I did. And but that e-savings account is pretty much at its minimum. I think I have to have a minimum of $25 when I first deposited it, but in my point of view, it's still zero, right? Okay, so now what we do, so let's rate our milestones, which is 11K of debt paid off in about, was it 5 months? Well, let's take a look at that. Yeah, 5 months. And then now what we do is we take on, there's two more debts. So which one do we are going to take on? When you take the auto loan or the mortgage? I will say the auto loan, right? Because it's much easier to pay off, and when you pay it off, you free up, you know, a, a proportional amount of cash flow that's higher than to the mortgage. So if you don't know what that means, look up cash flow index. There's a formula for that. But if you have no idea, just skip that, ignore what I said. But let's just kind of use the same strategy just to pay off the auto loan. So usually when you have lower interest loans and higher balances, it's the most optimal strategy is just to kind of move or pay off the principal in pieces and then just use your line of credit, right? So I'm just going to kind of give you a little simulation of how that works, although it's not too exact, just an idea. And then you could just go ahead and do the math. The reason I don't do it here is because it's just way, it could be really overly detailed and complicated. But let's just say we move 6 grand, and actually we got to figure out 5 months. What's the balance of that auto loan? So let's go ahead and check it out. 22,000 at 3%, and then at 6 months it's about 19,000, right? So good deal, 19,000. All right. So now what happens when you move this to the 19,000? Let's just move $6,000 into that line of credit, and if I move this 6,000, now our cash flow only increases once the loan is paid off, right? So this is why our cash flow still stays the same. But how long did it take to pay off that $6,000? Only about 2, 3 months. 3 months, right? Is that crazy? So if we're just trying to pay off $6,000 and just paying that minimum monthly payment and feel like, oh my goodness, we need savings. And this is really good with savings, right? So it's not like a bad deal. But we can easily just have an easy way to pay off our principal and just reduce the balance and put our entire paycheck into that line of credit. Now, here's a cool thing. There's a velocity banking calculator that I like to use, provided by Renatus because I'm a Renatus student, and I'm also the independent contractor marketer for them, meaning that I actually make commission off of selling the educational products, and this is where I first learned velocity banking from. So all I do is just input the information here to just simulate what I just did, and then I just literally just put that in, and that does everything for me. So 22,000. What's the balance, which is 19,945.33. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay. So the interest rate is 3%. So 3% at how many years? 5 years. And what's the payment amount? Which is 395.31. So 395.31. And then what is the amount that we want to transfer from the loan to the line of credit? It doesn't really matter, to be honest. Like usually the optimum amount is just kind of like the amount that you get paid. So we'll just do 6,000 around. But you could play around with this, right? I played around with this, and we'll just say 15%, $6,000 of income, and what's our expenses? Everything except the loan we're trying to pay off. So you can see right here, if you add this up, this is 3,200. So let's go ahead and put that 3,200 right here. And then you can see that it takes us 0.6 years to pay off that loan. And we're going to pay $1,400 of interest, but we only paid $374. And to be honest, I don't think that this is really that much interest compared to like a 30-year mortgage, right? Like it's not that much. But man, with the 30-year mortgage, it's so much interest over the life of that loan. It's an insane amount. But if you ever try to pay a car loan in cash, usually they try to charge you a fee because this interest is really valuable to them, right? 1,400 doesn't seem like a lot, but like if you try to pay in cash, I think they try to charge some sort of convenience fee or bank fee or something like that, and $700. So they're starving for this money. So if this goes to $300, I don't know if anybody will be happy about that. But luckily, there's not too many people doing this strategy, so I don't think they care. And if too many people pay off their loans quickly, maybe they might put some penalties and something. You know what I'm saying? But we'll go ahead and just track this. So point six, so point six years. How much is point six? Equals point six times 12. So that's 7.2 months. Okay, so 7.2, we'll just say 8 months. So that's 13 months for it to be paid off. And now our cash flow is 2,800, right? So how much did we pay off in total? 22 plus 11, which is 33K, right? So 33K. And then now the mortgage is the last thing we got to pay off, and we just do the same principle. So let's go ahead and do this. And so some of you might be thinking, this like why not just directly pay this to your loan? And there's two reasons for that. Number one is that if you directly pay your loan, you can't ever get your money back. You put it into line of credit, it's a lot more flexible. And this is why I'm sorry. This is why most people they like to refinance their mortgage because sometimes a lot of times their loan payment eats up their cash flow, right? And if they're going to put their entire savings into that loan, that mortgage, and overpay it, it's a little bit daunting for them. So you want to give them an easy way to overpay and still make it seem like that the mortgage is not a big deal into their cash flow, right? Number two is to prevent something called segregation of income. So if you put in this money, right, and then let's say like, oh, why don't you just use a credit card as a backup? You should see some of these spreadsheets that I get from other people where people are making like 8 to 10 grand a month. They have like 15 payments. And one of the things that you want to prevent with velocity banking is that segregation of income where you add an additional payment that's not necessary rather than putting your entire paycheck into one place, right? Seems like a psychological trick, but it works, right? And even Dave Ramsey says that when he talks about the snowball method, it's actually mathematically not like the most optimal situation, but it works, right? And this is how I paid off $58,000 of my mortgage in a year. But let me go back to here. So what's the balance after 13 months? Let's check. So what we got to do is just go to loan amortization calculator. And some of you might be saying, oh my goodness, you do this so fast. And that's because, that Bruce Lee quote, do the one thing, like I don't fear the man who does one kick, or I'm sorry, 10,000 kicks once. I fear the man who does one kick 10,000 times. And because I've been just doing these velocity banking demonstrations over and over again, that's why that's why it's so easy for me. So let's go back here. And then we're just going to go into the 13 months and figure out what that balance is at $200,000. So 13 months, 197. 197. Beautiful. All right. So now what we do is just put that 197 into the calculator, right? So 200,000 and then 197. All right. So now the interest rate, what's the interest rate? 630. We'll actually put in a more accurate number. I usually put 1200, but I really should probably get a little bit more accurate because it's not 1200. It's $9 short, but whatever. All right. So let me go back here. Whoopsie. 1199.1. Did I put it wrong? 1199.1. Oopsie. So 99.1. Okay. So now what we do is just change the expenses. And then what we do is just take out everything except for, or I'm sorry, put everything except for the loan we're paying off. So it's just going to be $2,000. And then what we do is just put $2,000 here and 4.8 years. Oh my goodness, 4.8 years. Mind blown. Okay, so now let's go here. And then now it's just going to be, let's calculate in years. So 13 divided by 12 plus 4.8. Oopsie, I need to put an equal sign. 5.8 years to be debt free. Oh my goodness. So 233K, 5.8 years debt free. Right? See how easy that was? Oh my goodness. Debt free. I gotta highlight this. And I mean, imagine if you had all your debts paid off under 6 years, not even a house payment. You'd be so rich, right? Because now you're gonna have actual savings. Because if you have like a savings account, even 4%, but you have all these credit cards and even like, and the savings that the amount that you save, right, is a minuscule amount compared to like the existing loans, then you're just going to be end up losing, right? But here we have no savings until all of our debt is paid off. So this is going to eventually, once all our debt is paid off, then we'll use the savings account, right? So until then, our savings is going to be zero, and now it's going to be 4,000 month one. After our debt's paid off, 8,000 month two, and now we're going to be balling. Do we even need a rental property to build wealth? Because once our debt's paid off, then it's like, oh my goodness, how do I have all this money? It was so easy, right? And let me just put this here, so it'll be 16 grand, and just so on and so forth. Oh my goodness, how easy was that? But until you paid off your debt, if you're using the velocity banking strategy, this is gonna go to zero, right? This is gonna go to zero. Let me zoom that in. Boom, zero, right? And so anybody who's searching on YouTube, this this is what we do with velocity banking and savings accounts. We have this and bam, zero until we pay off all of our debts. Okay. Well, this is Creating Atlanta Mentorship. So, another video about velocity banking and what we would normally do with savings accounts, not financial advice. So, don't do this unless, maybe you talk to a professional or something. And don't listen to me because I have no idea what I'm talking about. All right. Well, have a great day, everybody, and we'll speak next time.